So the five biggest automotive trends that should have stuck around from the 90s and 2000s, that's what we're going to be talking about today. Now, there's something that Chrysler and Ford did that was very interesting that Chevy completely skipped over. It's really an underrated topic, as in the early 90s and into the 2010s, basically Chrysler and Ford had switched from overhead valve, or what's known as a pushrod engine, to single overhead cam. Anybody who's owned any Dodge product from the 90s or early 2000s or any Ford product has seen the letters SOHC. Some people know what that means, some people don't. But really, it was the dominant powertrain for most of the 90s and most of the 2000s. Pretty much every Ford Crown Victoria taxi cab that's ever been manufactured had a single overhead cam. Now, Ford did things completely different. They had what was known as engine factories. So because General Motors had so many different brands, to compete with their corporate engines, they decided to specialize in engine families, basically different families for different purposes. And the Windsor, Ontario plant is probably the best example. Is the modular engines were single overhead cam engines, basically built in V6, V8, and even V10 configurations for like Bluebird, traveling vans and stuff like that. So at the end of the 20th century, they were switching from the 5.0 pushrod engines to the single overhead cam, where Chevy they skipped this whole process. They had the Iron Duke, which was basically a Pontiac-derived pushrod four-cylinder engine, and they used that in the Cavalier. They used that in all their different engines. So Chevy basically stuck with the pushrod and still uses the pushrod engine in their V8, but then after the 2010s, they just went to dual overhead cam. Really, in the United States, if you look at it really closely, Chevy kind of skipped the whole single overhead cam. Like that Mitsubishi Eclipse you see there were 6 generations of single overhead cam 24 valve V6 engines. Now, General Motors used the 3800 pushrod, which was essentially a small block V8 with just 2 cylinders chopped off. So they stuck with the pushrod engines even in their V6 engines. Now, those were reliable engines, but that's another thing when you talk about their transmissions. But really, what America needs is the affordable mid-size sedan, like these Dodge Dynasties, like this Mazda 2, single overhead cam, affordable cars under $15,000. The Pontiac Grand Prix is probably the poster child for the affordable American car, and the Corvette used to be the affordable American car, but they have really gone away from that. Those are $200,000 vehicles now, so that is the biggest difference.